In this video, we're taking a closer look at Killing Floor 2. We're going to look at the pros and the cons and everything you need to know before you buy Killing Floor 2. But is the game actually worth playing? Let's find out. I've on Game Grader here, and Killing Floor 2 is a co-op zombie shooter game. It's all about slaying waves of terrifying zombies. Now, Killing Floor 2 is on a full release and cost $30. And Killing Floor 2 has a lot of the things that I'll describe as a good zombie game. It has good graphics, variety of weapons and classes, tons of cosmetics, and a lot of really good gore. So if you're looking for a game all about slaying zombies, powering up, and listening to some really good metal music, this game is definitely for you. Now, besides from just being a shooter, Killing Floor 2 is also an RPG game with some really interesting mechanics. The game has a class system, and killing zombies will grant you experience, and this unlocks perks and passive bonuses for that given class. This could, for instance, be a damage passive multiplier that'll benefit your character in each different game, and this can be a massive help when you reach the really difficult levels. The game has a total of 10 different classes, all with their own pros and cons, and this allows for a ton of variety, replayability, and team coordination. You, for instance, have the Demolitionist, which you guessed right, blows everything up, and this can be done with a massive RPG launcher, grenades, and much more. You also have the Berserker, which focuses entirely on hand-to-hand combat. So with a total of 10 different classes, there's always a class and playstyle for every given player. Now, for each wave you complete in a certain game, the harder the zombies become, but you also gain money from killing the sets, which you can then use to upgrade your loadout, weapons, and armor. And all these upgrades are crucial for the later waves, since you won't just be swamped by more sets, but also a bigger variety of them. And all these sets also have their strengths and weaknesses, so it's very important to coordinate with the team. And then to top it all up, after completing all the waves, you will also be presented with a random boss. And these also vary a lot in terms of abilities, health, and how to deal with them. And I still get nightmares from some of these bosses. Now, the game does have a storyline. There's a bit of lore, but it's not a lot. It is very simplistic, and it's not really a big part of the game. Now, when you talk about Killing Floor 2, you cannot forget to mention the multiplayer, as this is a big part of the game. Now, I would always recommend playing this kind of game with your friends, because there is unfortunately an issue with multiplayer, and that is you can often find really elitist meta players. And especially on the really high difficulties, some of these elitist players will complain about everything that's wrong with you. Now, there are not that many of them, and most players are actually really nice, but they do exist in the game, unfortunately. Now, the graphics in Killing Floor 2 is absolutely fantastic, and I would say even for a game that is pretty old by now, it still looks really good. Maps are very detailed, themed, and interesting. The weapons, animations, and player animations, and everything just makes the game pop. And this also comes into the gore. The gore is absolutely fantastic, and you will never be disappointed with the gore of the game for sure. If you're into rock, hard rock, and metal music, you will also love the soundtrack of Killing Floor 2. It definitely suits the playstyle of just going ham with a shotgun and just blasting everything around you. And you also have really good directional audio, so you can hear where the sets are coming from. So the graphics, the gore, the sound, and the music all ties together in a really nice way to give you a nice, authentic, and immersive gameplay. Now let's look at some replayability. So with a total of 10 classes, you are bound to find a class with a playstyle that fits you. In Killing Floor 2, you have complete control over what map you want to play, the game mode, the difficulty, and the length. And this allows for a ton of variety and replayability as you control all the aspects of each game you play. There are even community made maps, so you basically never run out of new maps to play. You can also choose based on game length. So if you want a game to take 15 minutes or be infinite, you have all the options. The game has a total of 4 difficulties, ranging from normal, hard, suicidal, and my personal favorite, hell on earth. And that is absolutely punishing and difficult. And this allows for a ton of replayability and fun for all ranges of players, beginner or veteran. There is a game difficulty for you to play on. In my experience, normal difficulty is not that difficult at all. It is basically equivalent to other games of easy, but once you get up to suicidal or hell on earth, the game becomes really difficult, and it will take you a lot of hours to get to the point where you're skilled enough and also you're high enough level to be able to complete those games. If you find this video useful so far, make sure to boop the like button, as it really helps out the channel. Thank you so much for doing that. Now let's look at some pros and cons of the game. So to start off with, we are looking at the pros, and there is a lot of pros for this game for me. First of all, we're looking at the sound. So this includes the music, overall sound effects, the set screams, and the one-liners from the classes are all really well implemented. The next pro is the replayability. When you factor in the RPG mechanics of leveling up your character and unlocking new perks, and when you then combine that with an incredible amount of map star and also the difficulties, you can easily get hundreds of hours in this game in terms of replayability. And the next pro we're looking at is how bloody the game is. The gore of the game is fantastic, and this ties into the graphics as well, which even though it's a pretty old game, still looks pretty good. But the bloodiness and the gore of it is definitely a massive pro for this game. Now for the cons, and I hate to be the one to break it to you, but the game has pay to win elements. Yes, there's a pay to win in-game shop. You can buy really strong weapons, and I'll be more than fine with cosmetics, but pay to win is always a massive con to me. I absolutely hate it, especially since most of these weapons can cost more than $10 a piece. This also has a big impact on the PvP mode of the game. Now let's grade the game, shall we? And the first thing we're looking at is the gameplay. That's the most important aspect of the game. You can ignore a lot of things works, as long as you have really good gameplay. So here we're looking at the mechanics, the system, and does the game work as intended. So in terms of mechanics, I actually really like it. The RPG mechanics of it, leveling up your character, and your really good systems as well. But you do have one mechanic, one system here that really raised the game down a lot. And that is the pay to win shop. So if it didn't have that, this would definitely be an A for me. But the pay to win elements are actually so far down that I grade the game as C+ on gameplay. Now if you can just ignore the pay to win, or you don't want to do the PvP aspect, then the game is really good in terms of gameplay. But for me, it is definitely a massive con. Next thing we're looking at is the graphics, the sound, and immersion. Basically, you get these wow moments where the game just blows you away with either how beautiful it is, or in this case, how gory it is. And even for an old game, the graphics are pretty good. And here I give Killing Floor 2 a B. So even though the graphics are a bit outdated, of course the game is pretty old, they still look fine. But the sound, music definitely adds a lot to the game. So I grade the game a B here. And the next thing we're looking at is the progression and the replayability. Basically, does your effort feel meaningful? And is there a nice progression to the game? And here I also give Killing Floor 2 a B. I like the progression of the classes. Having that RPG elements in it definitely helps a lot in terms of leveling up yourself and not just playing every single game like it's their own. And there is a lot of replayability in the game in terms of the ability to choose 10 different classes, a ton of different maps, game modes, and lengths. And therefore, the overall grade of Killing Floor 2 is a B. This would have definitely been a game I would have rated an A, if not for the pay to win in-game shop. But the base game of Killing Floor 2 is absolutely fantastic. It's a great zombie wave shooter with amazing gameplay, gore, and sound design. And the replayability and variety is also great. But I absolutely hate the pay to win element, especially for a game you actually buy and not just being free to play. But the gameplay is still really good, and I would absolutely recommend buying and playing it, especially if you have some friends you can also play with. Killing Floor 2 is a great game. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of Killing Floor 2. Also check out the videos on screen now, as I think you really like them as well. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, everyone.